kind greetings and welcome to our Tuesday night broadcast with the National Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, short for TFAM, Veteran Support Group. It's always good to be with the veterans. We are a mighty, mighty group of people, and we have served well, and we have experienced just about every place and everything that a human being can handle, from actually being in conflict, as was the case with our dear veteran Kima and Chaplain Maureen, both of whom have some stories that they can tell that really led to us having a discussion on the stages of grief. And it was the catalyst for this, for Chaplain Maureen, was the death of four of our fellow veterans and friends, and even those two that were not veterans were very, very close friends from the Fellowship of Affirming Ministry, also known as TFAM, and also because she and I were assaulted while serving, and then we had that insurrection on the 6th of January of 2021 that I think was just the match that lit the volcano. And so, uh, along with the 460,000 plus who have died from COVID, we are in agreement that this is an excellent time to talk about the stages of grief. We've talked about the first stage, shock, and denial that kind of goes together. Last week we talked about the second stage, anger, very, very hearty, felt conversation. The reasons that we're angry sometimes has to do with things that you wouldn't believe are part of the stages of grief. It doesn't take the death of a loved one. Sometimes it can be the loss of a job. And tonight we are continuing our conversation on the third stage of grief, depression and detachment. Our goal is to provide a platform upon which we can feel through. Our feelings are important, and it's important to feel through our feelings and not harbor our anger, or harbor our denial, or harbor our depression, but to talk about it, because we know that with the 8 billion plus people that are on this planet, 8 billion plus at one point in time has gone through these stages of grief, and not straight down the line. We may find ourselves in depression. I find that I experience depression more than I experience all of the others, for the exception of acceptance, which is next to the last stage of grief. But it's not linear. Tonight we're talking about grief, we're talking about depression and detachment, and who knows, before the night is over, we'll go right back to talking about the previous two, and how all of this soup fits in together. It's like a vegetable stew that we have an opportunity to kind of take apart one word at a time. So not only is it our goal to have conversation, to be in dialogue about the things that matter specifically to veterans and to the general population, but also we want you to experience emphasis on experience. We want you to experience your own stages of grief and to understand your stages of grief. And so we welcome you. We thank you for being here. We ask that you like and share in the words of some of our hosts. And we welcome, of course, tonight our co-host, Chaplain Maureen out there in Maui, uh, Hawaii, and Kima, who I think is in snowbound New York or New
Yes.
Jersey.
Yes, New York.
Yes, New York, and I'm here in the wonderful state of Michigan, and I tell you that this cold weather is this a winter is showing herself true to herself this year, in the Midwest and in the Northeast, and New York is really getting it. So I hope, Kima, you're keeping warm
Oh, yeah.
and staying safe. Before we start, I say winter is just disrespectful. I agree with that.
Right.
I agree with that. So before we actually get into the subject of depression and detachment, Chaplain Maureen, Kima, do you have opening remarks that you would like to share as to how you are faring with the progress that we are making or not making, and any suggestions as to how we could be a little bit better at what we are doing together?
Yeah, I'm feeling hopeful with the new president in place. It's nice to have some grown folks serving. And
Yes.
and it seems like there's, radical changes happening already. For instance, transgenders being allowed to serve in the military again.
Yes.
And and many other things that are happening that he's just signing resolutions for rather than waiting and going through all the stages that would have to be to pass a bill. He's just been able to make a lot of resolutions and get some things happening. And he's enacting the resolution to get COVID programs up and running and getting the National Defense Act up and running so that things can get done quicker and get out more of the transportation issues, get them out of the way, the delivery issues. So I'm feeling very hopeful as to where we are right now. And, we're not even a month in, and all this is happening. So I'm very hopeful.
He's doing the best he can with those that are resisting him. I tell you, there's always going to be a few, a hand, and the ones who are resisting need to be expelled. But that's another conversation. How about you, Sister Kima?
I'm like a lot of Americans on Facebook right now. They said this is the first time they've got a good night's rest in 4 years. So that's
Yes,
how I feel. I feel like our country is in somewhat good hands. We still have a lot of work to do, but now we can kind of see the path in which we should go versus worrying about what's next. So I'm very happy right now, and I feel like we're at a place where we can actually make some good change happen.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it is wonderful to have adults, I mean, people who act like adults, as opposed to being adults and acting like children. You know, we're supposed to be childlike to enter into the realm of God, into the kingdom of heaven, but we're never to be childish. And a lot of us, I think it was our former first lady, um, Michelle Obama, that said that she was experiencing low grade, what she called low grade depression, during the former administration. And I would say that many of us experienced, I don't know too much about low grade. Mine is usually full blown. When it goes, it goes. And to hear the former first lady of the country to make that observation was depressing, quite honestly. I mean, I appreciate her honesty, but I think I make the mistake from time to time that because of a person's station in life, that they're not supposed to experience such things like low grade depression. Not the first lady of the country, but they're human also. And it is all a part of the human condition. Chaplain Mo, did you do some studying up on depression?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you've got the definition for us tonight, huh?
Well, depression is when you go through the cycle of feeling down, having your mood get to the point where you need to sleep or rest more often, sometimes not even wanting to get out of bed, period. It's when you feel dull or numbed to the grief experience because you can't even let it in because you're afraid of being overwhelmed. And it's just a general state of exactly what it says it is depression, actually coming down in mood, coming down in your ability to respond. Just can't do what you normally do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any reflection on that, Sister Kima?
Yeah, I'm just saying that exactly how it is. You know, it's so funny. I remember when I used to be a little younger, and when people would say, depression is real, older adults used to say it. I never understood it until I became old and I realized how the world works and how it just weighs on your shoulders. And sometimes you don't even realize you're depressed until it's too late and you're too deep in. So
Yes.
it's really far.
And what are some of the perils of waiting too late?
Lack of
You
sleep. Go
you
ahead.
you can actually move into clinical depression. And at that point, you need to get some professional help. You may even need medication. A lot of people are anti medication, but when it comes to depression, it can literally save your life. We
Yes,
have
yes,
22 veterans a day
a
commit
day.
suicide.
Sure.
22 a day,
And
you
would
know?
you suggest that of all of the stages of grief, that depression is probably driving the vehicle, so to speak, is the
Yes,
driving force behind committing suicide?
yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some things in addition to medication and that we can do in addition to medication, seeking clinical counseling. I haven't talked with my psychiatrist yet, but I know that I have what they call in the VA now we have conversation by way. It's not Zoom. It's but it's by way of computer. We see one another, and I really look forward to those times. I have a very good psychiatrist. He listens, and instead of just outright answering any questions that I may have, he walks me through answering the question myself, which is very very helpful. But what else could we recommend to pastors? What kind of program would be ideal in our congregations, uh, for the veteran among us? It- what
It's
do you think?
exactly what we're doing here, a support group.
Okay.
Identify the veterans within your congregation and do something about getting them together and also recognize them as veterans
Mm-hmm.
and give them what support you can because a lot of them are going through PTSD and other various problems. And then when you get the 6 stages of grief added to it, it can be overwhelming.
Yes, Sister
And
Kima.
I would also say general mental health awareness. Like we took
Yes.
at City of Refuge, we took mental health first aid.
Oh, that
where
was nice.
where we learn to recognize the different signs of different mental health issues and learn to be able to identify them so we could intervene right away before something gets out of hand.
Yes. Every Tuesday, one of my colleagues has yoga, like from 5:30 to 6. That's something else. I usually don't get on the floor, but the whole time that she's doing yoga from the waist up, I will do that, and I really do feel better after that. And I've invited her to be on our broadcast one of these times, and before we finish this, maybe we will have her on to take us through a yoga experience, because it works. So that's one of the other things that we can do in our local churches, is that you said you called it a mental health kit.
First, mental
First
health
aid.
first
First
aid.
aid.
Mental health first aid. Who led that?
There's actually a program called National Mental Health First Aid, and
Okay.
you can get a hold of them at that site. And they have programs and they send people out to your church to educate. You
Okay.
can get a certificate in it.
So, Pastor Sue, do you have I see that you've done it. Um, and maybe you will um, take us through one of our broadcasts, that you'll take us through one of those, uh, um, bring it to our show. I'm a little off tonight, but I'll get with it. Just give me a minute to get in gear. That if you, having done it at Rivers, perhaps you will do it on one of our shows, while on one of our broadcasts, while we are doing the stages of grief. I think that it would be very helpful for the listening audience, and we could do it. I would prefer to do it on our National Veteran Support Group, if that's okay with you. I guess you're praying about it, and that's a good thing. Praise the Lord.
There are some other things that churches can do that can help. Meditation groups
Yeah.
are wonderful.
Yes.
Taze services.
Now,
Um,
what is a Taizé service?
excuse me. Taze is music that is like chanting.
Okay. Now, do you get to pick out your own mantra, or is that something that's assigned to you? And
You get to hear the Taze music played. It's like a Gregorian chants,
okay.
music from the 13th century, and they have different chants, and it's a different type of service where it's very meditative because they do the music and it's all chants.
Very good. We don't want to scare anybody off now.
Nah, it's pretty relaxing. I actually meditate with my fiance, so it's actually
Okay.
very relaxing. As a PTSD veteran, sometimes I take sometimes you take everything in and it's kind of compressed and compressed and compressed, and you want to explode. So sometimes you need that moment of quiet, and sometimes you just need to hear nothing but the noise around you, like literally nothing else. It's really relaxing, considering.
I do find it difficult to turn the noise in my head off. Takes practice. It
It
takes
does.
practice. And a lot of times I find that while I'm turning the noise off, that I really drift off to sleep, and a very restful sleep. So all of these things are things that we can bring to our broadcast, and you can show us, Sister Nakima, how you and your fiance do it, and that would be good. Pastor Sue is telling me that tapping works.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
here now. I'm so sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
talking and I didn't realize I wasn't actually in the live. So I
Okay.
apologize. So just to bring it back really quick for the mental health first aid, and there's more for there's youth mental health first aid. So I uh, did it for Rivers. So the organization contacts houses of worship and different organizations that that work with other individuals, and so we partner with them to have a training, and so that they come in and instruct whoever's there. So it's usually about 50 people, and then we get certificates. And for the youth first aid one, I actually have my youth young adult department team take that particular training, and it is really helpful. So I could share like some of the things that we discussed. So it wouldn't actually be like a training, but I could certainly share some of the things because we do have the workbook, we do have the book that they give us. I could share some of the things that we did cover. It really is helpful, and I'm glad. And we did that in New York, so I'm glad to hear that they're actually doing it in other states.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I wasn't aware that they were doing it in other states, but it is something that is important. So going back to tapping, I actually learned about tapping from Bishop Elect Vanessa, and there is a free tapping app, and so you tap different areas of you tap your chin or your temples, and you recite things to yourself.
Okay,
Um,
like affirmations.
yes, and it helps bring your anxiety down. It helps to calm you down. Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm going to type the title, the name of the app. It's a free app that you can download
Okay.
on your
An-
smartphone.
Another thing that's helpful is breathing exercises. It's helpful for both PTSD as well as depression. And
Now,
the wonderful thing I found about that course, Mental Health First Aid, especially with the youth, is it teaches the warning signs for suicide.
Mm.
outstanding. Then perhaps we could do the adult sharing on the National TFAM Veteran Support Group and do for the youth on the Triumphant Thursday night.
Yeah, we could do that.
And it would be wonderful if we could have the youth with us, a couple of the youth with us that night. I'm looking forward to it. You're going to put the in the chat
Yeah, so
the
the name of the tapping app is called Tapping Solution. Now,
tapping solution. Okay.
yes, and I'm sure that they have like other apps, but Tapping Solution is the one that I use. And whenever you sign in or when you tap it to log on, it always gives you some type of really inspirational quote.
Hmm.
And it there's tapping for releasing anxiety. There's tapping to motivate you to work. There's tapping for releasing anger. Um, Want to turn your day around. If you all of a sudden your day is not going the way that you wanted to go, then you tap to kind of turn your day around, to release overwhelm. Um, there's tapping to quiet your critical voice, to relieve evening stress. So it's an evening stress relief one. I mean, there's um, so many ones they
Applications.
have. Yeah, yeah. There's so many, and so this one app, this is what you could kind of create a series for yourself,
Wow.
and click on it, like all right, yeah, maybe I didn't have a bad day yesterday, but I'm having a bad day today, so I'm going to click on the one that helps me get through a bad day, to change a bad day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hopefully there'll be a way that we can actually show that on the broadcast. But
Yeah,
uh,
I'll figure it out.
okay.
Yeah, you might have to do a share screen option. Share screen option. Oh.
Even though our feelings are important, they can trick us. And I don't. And when I say that, uh, to have this tapping tool would be extremely important. Pastor Sue, if you would put up
Yeah,
the
I'm going to share my
the
screen now.
article.
Well, it's not.
Uh,
I will actually share the website right now.
okay, great, very good.
Let me just go.
Another thing that I'd like to say, Chaplain PJ, with churches is just community, that they have to realize right now that so many people are in isolation and don't have access to their community and to their church community. And so we need to be aware of that as pastors.
Absolutely.
We need to find ways to create community.
Yes.
Right, like mentorships or pen pal situations, or even like having a conversation. I reach out to my friends once a week and we talk about stuff and just like, let them just vent. Sometimes people just need to hear what's going on in their life and walk themselves back from that supposed anger. Sometimes we just need that moment to be human, not what people expect of us. Sometimes we just need that moment.
And unfortunately, we would not be able to do that live or on our on our broadcast because of the confidentiality piece.
Gotcha.
And when we recommend our what we are discovering that works, um, like this tapping ministry, uh, that we make certain one of the ways that I'm pushing this forward is to ask the faith-based leaders to ask a veteran to do it with veterans, because we know that we open up to one another in a different way than we do to someone who has never served. I thank you, Pastor Sue, for putting that up. And if now you'll put up my article this week, I want to take a look at uh, the photo and to ask you if you've ever felt any of those, if you've ever felt insignificant or unimportant or unwanted or shameful or useless or worthless or broken or inferior or powerless. Have you ever experienced any of that?
For
And
me,
well, in just a minute, we're going to come back to that
Okay.
after I've read the article. Chaplain Mo, would you please read the scripture?
Certainly. So don't be afraid. I am here with you. Don't be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. Isaiah 43:10 from the
41.
Lord.
Yes. Now,
41:10, excuse me.
yes. Okay, so take it down again for another minute, Pastor Sue. When I located this scripture, I found it in Isaiah, and I wasn't expecting to find it there. I was expecting to find it in um,
The New Testament.
no, in Exodus when
Oh,
Moses died, and God said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you." And I will go with you everywhere you go to strengthen you. And I never did find it. And how important that particular scripture was for me is to find yourself in a leadership position after a pastor. Let's say that you have been called to a church that chewed up their pastors. There are some congregations that they do that. And so every 5 years, as a matter of fact, I had a deacon to say to me at one of my pastorates. She asked me, how long I had been there, and I told her 6 years. She says, "You've been here too long. Let me see what I can do about that." And it is so important to know that God is with you when you're following in the footsteps, in that case, of a congregation that does make it a point to rotate their pastors in and out. Or in the case of the pastorate before God gave us Space for Grace Without Walls, where I succeeded the founding pastor who had been there a long time, a long, long time. Either of those are very difficult leadership positions, are very challenging leadership positions. And I can imagine after 40 plus years under Moses's leadership and coming out of Egypt and the parting of the Red Sea and all of the miracles that Egypt experienced that the Hebrews did not experience, the plagues, for an example. And now the leader is gone, and here we have a word from the Lord: just be strong and know that I am with you. And this is the way I started out this particular um, connected soul to soul article. Dear God, thank you so much for the dialogue we are having on the stages of grief. It is needful that we speak on these stages considering the high number of persons dying from COVID, deaths in our families, and among our fellow veterans. In a nutshell, depression, our third stage of grief, affects more people worldwide than all six stages of grief put together. Now, I didn't run those numbers. That is an assumption. And if I were to run the numbers, I suspect that I have spoken truth here. Um, it is a mood, like you said, Pastor Maureen. It is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest that affects how you feel, think, and behave, that may or may not have anything to do with the death of a loved one and everything to do with life. Among veterans, there is a stigma associated with getting help, and it is one of the leading causes of death by suicide among veterans. Some barriers to mental health include: one, personal embarrassment about service related mental health disabilities; two, long wait times to receive mental health treatment; three, shame over needing to seek mental health treatment; four, fear of being seen as weak; five, a lack of understanding or lack of awareness about mental health problems and treatment options; six, logistical issues such as long travel distances to receive care. And if you're on active duty, there is a real threat of being dishonorably discharged. When I am depressed, I want to sleep. I tend to procrastinate as long as possible, only to find myself up against a standard deadline that I could have met many days before. Closing paragraph. We used to sing a little song in the hometown church that reads, "Do not be dismayed, whate'er betide. God will take care of you. Beneath his wings of love abide. God will take care of you." I am grateful for the old time hymns. Along with God's help, they bring me out of depression, if only for a short while. I am learning to pray for and receive relief. I have found that writing is therapeutic for me, and I suppose that's a good thing. But I am also discovering that I am depressed a lot more than I like to be. And I will be having that conversation with my psychiatrist in a few weeks. And I'm wondering if I'm alone in this. Do you find that you are in and out of depression more than you like to be, or is it just me?
I find myself there more than I like to be. I am actually diagnosed PTSD and bipolar.
Oh
And,
my.
and sometimes with the bipolar condition, I tend to be more on the depressed side. I really have only experienced a couple manic episodes in my life, but the depression has put me in the hospital more times than I can count.
Well, I'm glad you're still with us, and that you are being saved from the outcome um, that many have experienced. For the listening and viewing audience, share with us what you mean by manic.
Manic is when you cannot sleep for days, you are hyperactive, your attention is all over the place, you can't focus. A lot of times there's hyper spending where you'll go out and spend lots amounts of money on needless things just because it's an activity that comes up with people that are manic. Um, Hypersexuality, anything that can be hyped up, anything that can be addictive behaviors become heightened.
So, you say you rarely experience that.
Yes.
Interesting that your depression would be associated with bipolar, and mine is associated with paranoid schizophrenia. And I often hear the voices. Started out with a couple of hundred of them, but praise the Lord, we got them down into the double digits, and you just don't know what a relief that is. Not to hear people screaming at you that you're unworthy and you're despicable, and you're not important, and your niece sister didn't want you. Can't speak for the rest of the family, but it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. But God, by the grace of God, we have been able to uh, get the voices down to about 10 or 12. uh, and I heard those voices on the 6th of January. I mean, they really got busy. You should have been in the Capitol, and you should have been the first one that they captured and killed, and all kind of crazy stuff. How about you, Sister Nakima?
Yeah, I suffer from depression, but mine is not clinically diagnosed in any way or form. My family has a very long history with mental health. My mom was bipolar, manic depression, PTSD, sexual abuse, a few things. So I was always aware of watching what she went through to kind of be careful of the triggers, because triggers are what makes these things activate. Like, there could be one thing that throw your whole day off, and it'll just go down the drain. So I try to stay away from things that actually activate my depression. I usually try to keep busy or reach out to someone or do something. And most of the time I'm okay. But lately it hasn't been so bad because I've now found a way to like keep away from that energy. But never anything severe that I've witnessed.
That's good news. And I appreciate you. Um I appreciate you bringing up the word trigger for our non-veteran folk. Give us an example of a trigger.
For me, a trigger for me is if I am friends with someone and I get ignored. It's a trigger for me. If someone doesn't want to speak to me, I'd rather you just tell me I'm not in a talking mood, rather you ignore me. For me, it feels like I'm not important enough. And then I'm usually like, okay, so not important. No one cares. Why should I be here? It starts like a downward spiral. One little thing can just make your whole day change.
Sure,
So those are
sure.
triggers. Triggers are things that bring things up.
Well, I'm telling you, we're a little bit better than half finished, and we're going to take a station identification break, and our beloved administrator is going to share with us some announcements. Thank you, Pastor Sue.
You're welcome. All right. Well, it's time for some announcements. I'm so grateful for this conversation. I think it's long overdue. And the three of you right now are just syncing so well. You're in perfect harmony with this discussion. And so I'm grateful for it. All right. Let's get into our announcement. So, first up, oh God, where is it? I think I did. Okay, so first up, it's right here. Here it is. I lost my place for a minute. So sorry about that. First up, as this broadcast is being sponsored by the TFAM National Veteran Support Group, we want you to join our group on Facebook at TFAM Veterans. Listen, this is just the beginning of the broadcast and the events and things that we are going to be offering. We don't want you to miss anything. And also, we want to build a community on in that group, right? So that we can support each other, encourage each other, hold space for each other. And so that's what we're trying to do with this National Veteran Support Group. And we want to invite you to please join. So head on over to TFAM Veterans and join. the group. Next up, as always, on Wednesday nights, we want to invite you to watch Beyond the Gatekeepers with Bishop Yvette E. Flunder, Dr. Vanessa M. Brown, and Bishop Carlton D. Pearson, and guests. It takes place every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can watch us live on Facebook at Bishop Yvette Flunder, also at Beyond the Gatekeepers, and on YouTube at tinyurl.com/beyond the gatekeepers. And if you've never watched any of that programming before, I encourage you to head on over to one of those pages and play some, just click on any one of our broadcasts, of our past broadcasts, and it will bless you. And you will become a fan. And I have no doubt that you will join us on Wednesday night. So again, every Wednesday night, right here on Facebook and also on YouTube, we invite you to join us. Chaplain Maureen Burns is a life coach. She has life coaching available. The name of her organization is Transformations Possible. Learn the law of attraction and spiritual principles for success. And so we want to big her up, say congratulations, and invite you to go ahead and contact her for some life coaching. She is an advanced law of attraction practitioner. And so her email address and her phone number is right there on the screen. We want you to go ahead and hit her up and get your life coaching on. Next up on Thursday, Triumph for Thursdays with Dr. PJ Anderson, we are continuing this important discussion on the stages of grief, depression, and detachment with special guest, Dr. Jamie Edie, who is a loss navigation specialist, a death doula, death midwife. She is just phenomenal. So what we do on Tuesday nights is that we lay this foundation, we get this conversation going. But on Thursday nights, we get some real practical tools to work with. Dr. Jamie is just phenomenal. And so we want to invite you, if you're watching tonight, to join us again on Thursday, February 4th. Speaking of Dr. Jamie, her next workshop series is coming up on February 19th at 7 p.m. Touch Me in the Morning. Let's talk about loneliness. And she's going to be talking about how touch is powerful. Touch is a basic human need. And when we don't have touch, especially with this pandemic, with everything we've had to physically separate, many of us are isolated, even more isolated than we were before. It does something to us. And so this workshop is going to help those of us who are suffering from this isolation and just over not being connected to others, how to get through when we have not been touched by anyone. So we're not just talking about sex, which she's going to also cover, right? But it's hugs and handshakes and high fives, all of those things that help us feel connected with each other. So we invite you to head on over to tinyurl.com/touch is powerful. It is a free workshop. It's a free workshop. Please head on over to tinyurl.com/touch is powerful and sign up today. As always, we've got to big up Kara Solutions. Focus on your passion. Let Kara handle the rest. Administrative, business, and consulting services for dreamers, visionaries, entrepreneurs, faith, and community-based organizations. You can visit us at www.karasolutions.com. And a perfect example of a service that Kara provides is this remote production, is this broadcast that you're watching right now. It is powered by Kara. And so if you're looking to begin maybe your own broadcast, if you need some custom branding or help with show development or even training, offer training on Zoom, StreamYard, Restream, and other third-party web apps, check us out. Hit me up, right? Send an email to sue@kara-solutions.com for a free consultation. And that is it. That is it for our announcements. We're so grateful that you have joined us tonight. And now we are going to hand this portion, the second half of our broadcast, back over to the hands of Chaplain PJ, Chaplain Maureen, and Kima.
Thank you so much. If I were not a customer, I would become one right now. Your work is beautiful. You didn't show my favorite one, Pastor Sue. Okay.
Thursday. They have to come Thursday to see it.
Okay.
No
All right.
peeking.
Congratulations, Chaplain Mo.
Yes, congrats.
I do
Thank
hope
you.
that we will be a blessing to you and people will be drawn to your services through our advertising. And so now let's in the last uh, uh, 14 minutes of our time together. My goodness, it just flew. It flew. Uh, we I put a question out, I believe, as to whether any of our dance with depression has made us feel inferior or powerless or broken or useless or alone or inadequate. Did we experience any of those during our times of depression? And did we did we experience any of those words being said to us as we grew up and said to us by our fellow middle schoolers, our fellow schoolers, where we worshiped, where we lived? Were you ever made to feel any of these um, words that could trigger suicide ideation?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yes, I've experienced all of them at different times in my life, and also as a veteran, I've experienced them. Unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but as a drill sergeant, I was sometimes told to use this terminology.
What, when talking to yourself or when?
No, when talking to the troops as a drill sergeant.
To make them feel bad about
Yeah,
themselves.
yes.
Well, that's I'm not sure what to say about that because I know that as a drill sergeant, you really gotta get
Get in
into
their
people.
heads. Get into their
Yeah,
heads.
you got to get into those heads. So, what would be an alternative, as an example?
I don't know, but I'm just saying I was told to say things like, you're worthless,
Okay.
get yourself together, and then you try to bring them back up again. You have to break them down in order to build them back up.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually teach you that at drill sergeant school, how to break down someone's psyche so that they're vulnerable. And then when they're vulnerable, then you can insert the new standard that you want them to achieve and build them back up.
I certainly would think it would be wonderful if our parents and our pastors, uh, after breaking us down, would build us back up. And in our class today, the first one of three, um, we were encouraged to approach our research from, say the word for me, Chaplain Mo,
Decolonization.
decolonization perspective. And this is the perfect opportunity in my life to find those affirming words to replace the words that we learned from the colonists, the missionaries that are still going on in many churches today. When I think of how the evangelicals prayed, or one of them made the comment that Biden was elected uh, because Trump. Uh, I don't remember what he did or didn't do, as if one had anything to do with the other. And I tell folks that, look, Biden was elected because 10,000 black and brown people voted for him. In addition to make it 84,000, as opposed to Trump's 74,000. But
Million,
but
million.
I mean, a million. Thank you, baby. But when I think of the things that Trump said about women, as if women in his life is just a piece of meat that he can grope on anytime. I mean, and for women to vote for him, even though and for women to have no control over their bodies, and to be okay with that. It's a mindset that is pumped into us from the cradle. Maybe invert. What is that called? In vitro.
In vitro.
In
In vitro.
vitro. Yeah, maybe even in vitro.
And it's
Now,
not my place to say this, but I couldn't believe that African Americans would support Trump. That just amazed me. It was like he said that he had done more for African Americans than any president since Lincoln.
right.
Spare me.
I don't know what book he was reading from, but anyway.
Well, I tell you, many of us have heard it said, "Everybody with my skin ain't my kin."
Right, every skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Right. That's it. That's it. Every skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Kinfolk.
Um, but as I said to one of my colleagues, who from time to time will remind me, one of the clips that he sent me was about this African American woman explaining why she did not support justice for Floyd. And I sent back to him, I said, we call that person a house Negro. And I want you to know there's a lot of them around. And I'm so proud to be the granddaughter of a slave, because I learned how to work. My ancestors learned how to work the fields, but they also got into their music out there into the fields and encouraged one another. And eventually, along came Sojourner Truth, who is what we would call a field Negro. So I don't want you to get it twisted. Just because she did not support his justice, that there's that many of them out there, is just enough for white folks to find when they want to prove, that there are some black folk that think like white folk. But and I do it very kindly, but you're right. I don't understand why an African American would vote for a misogynist unless they were also a misogynist. I mean, I think birds of, what do they say? What's the old saying? Birds
Birds
of
of
a
a
Birds of a
feather
feather
flock
flock
together.
together.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
They sure
But
do.
but it's so degrading. It's so degrading to, as a woman. There's my, what did he call Cain that died? Did he call him, there's my black person? You remember when Trump did that? Pointed to I think he pointed to Cain, who eventually died.
Mm-mm-mm.
Um, I tell you, reason to be depressed. So, what is the relationship uh, uh, to detachment? How do you understand detachment? Is that a form of withdrawal?
Yes,
Okay.
it's self-isolation.
Right.
It's when you stop pulling away from friends and family. I experienced it when I was experiencing the cancer. I was put into hospice and started fearing that the end was near. And so I stopped calling my sisters, who I normally call on a weekly basis. I just stopped calling them because I felt like I didn't have anything to say except to get ready to say goodbye. and I didn't want to do that, so I just detached from my family.
Okay.
Mm.
What is the difference between detachment and aloofness? You know what it means to be aloof?
Yes.
Mhm.
Are they first cousins?
Yeah, they're first
They're
cousins.
first
Okay.
cousins for sure.
They relate. They related.
Right, they know each other. They know each other.
They know each other very well, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Um, I found it interesting when I saw detachment in the list of options. And there was another one. You spoke of overwhelmed, being feeling overwhelmed. What was another word in your definition? Another synonym for depression, Chaplain Mo, when you looked at the definition? I think there was
I'm
another.
I'm not sure what.
Okay, so maybe I have it here. Lack of energy is one of the things that goes with depression and
Yeah,
detachment.
procrastination. Yeah, procrastination is number one.
Is
Yeah.
that? Yes, I put that in my comments when Dr. J during her program asked us to put in the chat the things that we needed to let go. And I put in there for myself procrastination. I really need to kiss that mama jamma goodbye. Because what it does is it puts me under pressure. Something that I could have been done with. I wait until the last minute to get it done, uh, and then you
Stress.
stress. That's right, stress and pressure, and so and a feeling of the blahs or the blues. Now, I didn't want to associate the music, the blues, with depression. But I wanted to throw that out there to check with you, to bounce it off with you to see if you think that there's a relationship between the blues and depression. The
Not mu-
music,
not musical. No, I wouldn't say there
okay,
is, except that a lot of times people who wrote the lyrics to the blues expressed depressive thoughts, like Strange Fruit.
okay,
When
okay.
Strange Fruit was done, that was something that needed to be looked at and needed to be recognized. But the lyrics of that song are just utterly depressive.
Oh, then I won't. You know what? I was going to. I have it up in my tab, strange fruit, and I was going to go back one of these days, whenever, and look at that. But I'm glad that you told me because now I won't. I don't want to. I don't want to read something that's going to depress me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's real. Yeah.
have you read it?
No, there's a song that I know that they've made, and every remake of it has the same tempo. It's very dark. It's very like saturated. It's very black. Like it's very.
Yeah.
It's in.
Bill,
It's in tight. It'll build you. It'll tighten you up. So it's a very weird. Even the terminology when I hear it, I just automatically block it out because it's like
Okay.
it's a dark space to be in.
Billie Holiday did the original.
Right.
Okay.
And they've
Okay.
remade it a few times. It's still the same tempo.
Well, how else can you look at hangings?
Nah.
Uh, I, it's amazing how the dominant culture finds so many ways to dehumanize the other. So many ways. Um, but I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is not a train. With the election and our new commander in chief, and his acts of compassion. I can remember before Trump was elected, I was traveling, and I was at some restaurant, and I was in the room with another person who was kind of egging him on. And I said, yeah, but where's the compassion? I don't see, I don't hear, I don't feel, I don't sense any compassion. But I do want to reassure us in our closing as we come to a close that that God is with us, and for those who don't have a God or do not believe in God, I am willing to confess that I am a recovering agnostic. I ask God questions all as often as I come up with a question, not to question God's authority, but to garner information and wisdom. I think somewhere in Proverbs it says, "In all you're getting, get an understanding,
Understanding.
get clarity, have conversation," like you were saying early on. That the one way to get an understanding is to have conversation, is to be in dialogue with one another, and a lot of times that's one of the things that will break up a partnership, or break up a marriage, or break up uh, a relationship, is very often our male counterparts. They don't want to talk, and don't want to listen. So but I believe that is the key to drawing closer to one another. That is the key to addressing our the PTSD and our mental health challenges. And I'm going to do my best, and with the help of you, Chaplain Mo, and you, Sister Nakima, is to keep having conversation, so that our fellow veterans can have the best life possible. And, we
Amen.
will continue to look at these barriers to mental health, because I don't think that they are addressed as often as they could be. I don't know if the VA is making any inroads in having satellite offices in rural communities, where veterans who live a ways from the urban and suburban communities can get help, or can get transportation to get help. So we will continue with our stages of grief, all of these keeping in mind these barriers, and not normalizing our experiences, but helping one another to understand, we're all in this together, and no one person is experiencing what they are experiencing alone, and we're going to help one another, are we not?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sister Nakima, closing remarks.
I'm just so grateful for us to have this conversation because, as a veteran, as a younger veteran, but nonetheless, learning from other people is often how we expand our horizons, how we look at the world differently. And having these conversations, whether for 10 minutes or an hour, it also makes you think twice before doing things. And I think sometimes just taking that extra second to think about something before you do it is very important. So these conversations are necessary, and I enjoy them.
Amen. Well, co-chaplain.
I'd actually like to do a little plug I talked to Sue about last week. It's for the Till Valhalla project. This is a company that produces t shirts, dog tags, wristbands that all have to do with the 22 soldiers that we lose, veterans that we lose a day. And all of the money goes back into agencies that help to come up with programs to prevent veteran suicide. So it's worth checking out.
So, Pastor Sue, do you have a banner for us to to um to look at, or will we have a banner by Thursday?
It's coming.
Okie dokie. I knew you did. I knew you did. So here is the address to take a look at. Now, is this a place where we can order products or?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
I've got a T-shirt coming that I'll probably have next week to be able to show.
To show,
But
okay.
they use the distressed flag as a symbol of veteran suicide.
Now, what is the distress flag? Upside down?
No, just a flag that is goes from being prominent to fading and fading
Oh,
out.
oh, okay. All right. Very good. Well, we are grateful for that resource to share with the community, and I would like to invite you to go to. I may be premature because I haven't done any of our Tuesday night broadcasts. To go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Let's see if we can get a couple of thousand folks to subscribe to our YouTube channel, uh, wherein I usually reserve the scripture for Triumph and Thursdays. I wanted to share with this community because what we think is so very important. We are breathing the breath of God. We have been pressed out of the body and out of God. We have been pressed out of the mind of God, and so we want to invite the viewers and listeners to take this scripture from Philippians in serious consideration. Whatever is true, which is becoming a conversation in many circles. What is truth? But whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And I would encourage you, wherever you are on life's journey and the stages of grief, to recognize that you are excellent by virtue of being here, that God does not create any junk. And through the years, we have been taught that we were wrong, or taught that we were impure, or taught that we were ugly, or taught that we were stupid. And none of that can be true because none of that is true of God. And you are worthy of life's best. And so until we see you again, think on things that lift you. Think on things that make you smile. Because no matter how dark the clouds, oh, there's a rainbow up there somewhere. Just give it a minute. Just give it a minute. Look for it. Look for it, and you will find it. God bless you, and good night.